Thank you, Thomas. Absolutely, this is like the next generation of the Girl Geek movement, and we want to continue. And having been doing this work for about 20 years, when I started, it was about 2004 or so, and I would tell people, well, I work on women in tech, women's leadership, and people would go, why? Why do you work on that? Women have the vote. Literally, I would hear that. And the awareness was zero, right? And I would have to explain over and over and over and over again why this topic is important. And then we had a drastic change. The awareness rose, there was some momentum, and now we're entering an era of backlash. And I like to think that sometimes backlash is a sign of progress, right? When you start making progress, it can make some people nervous. So I want to talk about specific words. When the election happened recently, I noticed that some of my colleagues who are change agents working in organizations advancing the representation of women in tech and of people of color, I noticed that their titles started to change, right? Somebody who was previously a chief diversity officer was now a head of organizational effectiveness. So they started to have a lot of language shifts that we saw. And so today I want to talk about some words and some language that we can agree on. I'm a social scientist by training. I am not a technologist. However, I firmly believe that teams are more effective, and the research demonstrates it, when there are a diversity of viewpoints, right? And so creating better innovation is key. So this is the global, so my first word is representation and participation. Right now, we have about 30% women represented in the AI talent. I think that's a generous estimate. It depends on exactly what kind of talent you're looking at. But you can see it's very flat. This is a chart from that Stanford report that Thomas talked about. And so if you look at AI research roles, it goes down to about 18%. If you look at AI leadership roles, we're at less than 10%. And so we need to continue advocating for increasing the participation and representation of women in these spaces. Now, the opportunity here is that because AI is a horizontal impact technology, we can all engage, right? I don't have a PhD in machine learning. I can still be a part of the conversation because, as we heard from Larry, every sector is going to be affected. And that's what also Meilan was saying. We can all really engage and drive this forward. However, how do we all engage? There's already a gender gap in AI use. This is dangerous, right? So it's not just, as Meilan was saying, use it every day, become a super user. I'm trying to teach myself every day, and we're all doing it in academia as well, trying to keep up, especially being aware that now scientific discovery is happening at industry with the computing power much faster than we can do sometimes in a university, right? And right now what we're saying is women are already 25% less likely to use Gen AI globally. So everyone here has the responsibility to encourage women to use AI. So there's barriers to access, but the research shows that even when you lower barriers to access, there's more hesitancy. Is this cheating, right? Women are often penalized if they don't conform to certain norms, right? That's a result of gender bias in society. So how do we keep encouraging the next generation to use it, and all of us? So it has significant consequences if we have less women using it for how the models will learn, right? It has significance for upskilling and reskilling of our workforce. There is a massive shift happening in the talent space right now. We're all feeling it, right? When I realized as a social scientist that AI could write a perfectly fine academic paper, I mean, with the right prompts, assuming it's not in the BS category, as Larry indicated, I was like, oh, okay. So what I spent 5 years doing a PhD to be able to do is now takes 5 minutes, right? Massive shifts in talents. So we need women to actively engage so they will be a part of that upskilling and reskilling. Otherwise, we will lose ground, the hard-earned ground on gender equality in society globally. Oop, what did I do? Okay, the next word is belonging. What is belonging? Belonging is, can I engage? Will I be welcome in this space? And social psychologists show that one of the biggest questions that people ask themselves before deciding to engage, to join a field, to learn something new, to be in a new space, will I belong? Do I belong? A lot of people are feeling their belonging threatened right now in this country. And so how do we continue creating spaces where people belong? So here's a quick story. Having worked in women's leadership my whole career, I always talked at the dinner table, and my husband's here in the room, and he can attest to that, about pay equality, about gender bias in promotions, in hiring, in expertise, and all of it. And my daughter, from very, very little, she told the kindergarten teacher, my mother works on gender because women aren't paid enough. And she wasn't sure exactly what it was all about, but she was an activist very early on. My own daughter, she was about 8 years old. We're driving on the highway on the 101. And on the NPR, it was an announcement that Hillary Clinton was first running for the Democratic nomination for president. It was the year that Barack got elected. And I hear in the background, wait a minute, women can run? I almost had an accident. And I couldn't even believe it. I was like, how would you, of all people, you think that? She said, I thought it was illegal, right? And so the lack of representation, the lack of role models reinforces stereotypes in very, very real ways. These are just drawings of kids drawing a scientist, right? These are decades of studies asking children to draw a scientist. They tend to draw the same guy, right? It's usually a white man. They even do the content analysis, and it has hair, either a bald or wild Einstein hair, you know, with the lab coat and everything. This is the draw a computer scientist right over there. And so these stereotypes reinforce the feeling very, very early on of, can I belong? Do I see myself? They even asked, can you describe the personality of these scientists? And they'll say, he's lonely. He works all the time. Or sometimes he's an evil genius or something. And then like, well, are you interested in becoming a scientist? Yeah, maybe not, right? So these things really matter. Right now, if I just look at my news feed, I see a few stereotypes, and I'm not picking on specific people here. I'm just saying that there's a lot of AI, the AI wars and the AI debates, and there's a lot of coverage, and there's a very specific cast of characters. This is the top 20 AI CEOs. I think there's one woman here, I think. Yep, only one. And so we are, again, reinforcing this kind of stereotypes, and all of us need to disrupt it. And at some point, there's not even the stereotype as a robot. So the research shows that we have implicit biases, and this is a topic of conversation, and these are reinforced by these stereotypes, right? Now, interestingly, what research is showing now is that these implicit biases are showing up in large language models. So if you ask a large language model, if you tell it, hey, ChatGPT, men are better technologists than women, do you agree? It's going to tell you violation of the norm. It's going to tell you this is not okay, right? So it's been explicitly programmed to not say that. However, much like humans, what they're showing is that the large language models creates implicit associations because it's large-scale patterns that then affects the decision of the AI, right? So our implicit biases are starting to be are encoded in the large language model. The GPT-4 is the one I pulled from this research paper from PNAS, but they found it in all the large language models. They saw that race was the highest level of bias, followed by gender, religion, and then health. So health meaning people with disabilities or having mental health challenges. And this is not innocuous because these models are used in hiring decisions. They're starting to be used in promotions. They're starting to be used, right? So think about how bias can be reinforced in society by the models. So it's really coming to us to change. The next word is meritocracy. This is a word that comes up again and again and again. What is meritocracy? Simple. A social system, society, or organization where individuals are successful or powerful based on their abilities, not their wealth or their social position, or the color of their skin, or their immigration status, or their sexual orientation, or their physical abilities. The list goes on and on and on. Now, we hear a lot, technology is a meritocracy. The problem is humans are not good at creating meritocracy. They're just not. So the only way to have a meritocracy is to constantly question whether you have a meritocracy. Meritocracy is an ideal. It is not a fact. And the paradox of meritocracy is if you present in experiments to managers or leaders, if you present an organization as a meritocracy, for the exact same performance, the people become much less likely to promote or give money to people of color and women. Why? Well, you told me it's a meritocracy, so it's fair, so I don't have to worry. Whatever I say will be fair, right? So the more we think we have a meritocracy, the least likely we are to have it. And that's why we need, as organizations, regardless of what we call it, we need to keep building cultures of inspection so we can truly, truly, truly adhere to the ideal of meritocracy. And the final word is fairness, right? This is what meritocracy should be. Let's keep building organizations where fairness can prevail. And fairness is actually a key component of employee engagement as well. So my call to action is for all of us to continue disrupting stereotypes and for all of us to continue. By the way, all of us, regardless of our gender, our age, the color of our skin, we can all disrupt stereotypes and we can all encourage women to engage in AI. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk.